academic. I'm not associated here, I'm all in it. I got a good story every time I wake up. I'm in the action, chips on the table. I want the feel good, I need another percentage. I want the win, lucky 7 every time I walk in. You know?
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Nick, I'm a field signature artist with Conn Professional Beauty. Welcome to the Sebastian Professional Art of Texture. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. I'd like to thank Modern Beauty Supply as well for allowing us to go live on their Instagram page. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to be doing this on my own today. So if you look at the bottom, you should see a question card. So these are a little box. They've got a little question mark in there. So if you do have any questions for me, if you could just press that question card and make sure that you put your questions in the question cards. I've also got one of my colleagues, Nichelle, who's also going to be fielding any questions that come in the feed. So today we're going to be focusing on technique. We're going to be focusing a little bit more on craft. And we're going to be focusing on the art of texturizing the hair. Okay? These techniques can be done on wet or dry hair, depending on the types of techniques that I showcase for you. And also as well, these can be techniques that can be very, very quick and very, very easy. Okay, so here's my mannequin, my model. So this is Sandy. Sandy's been used in quite a lot of different lives over the last couple of weeks. So I'm gradually recycling through all the different looks with Sandy. So today I'm going to, as I say, it's going to be more of a technique class that I share with you today. I'm going to be utilizing my blade. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a lot of razor cutting today. This hair has been prepped, so I shampooed the hair with Sebastian dark oil. I've also prepped the hair with the dark oil itself. If you've never used this, this is amazing. We like to call it body in a bottle. Yeah, you can use this on the finest of heads and it will not go flat. It's called dark oil because it's a little bit mysterious. It actually sort of comes out and it's a little bit more like a gel-like consistency. So I'm going to work a little bit of that through the hair. And really when you're using a blade on the hair, it's really important that you make sure that you've got a really nice sort of finish on the hair because you want to make sure that the blade tends to glide through the hair. So I've prepped it with some dark oil. And I've also given it a little bit of a polish through with my GHD Platinum Plus. And I've also used a little bit of heat protection. And I've used Trilliant from Sebastian for my heat protection. You've got to make sure with Trilliant, so you see that in the camera, it's actually 2 components. So what you need to make sure you do is you need to make sure that you give it a shake and that activates the component. This can be used on wet or dry hair. So in this case, I've actually used it on dry hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a technique called skimming. Okay, I'm just going to turn this camera around slightly. Everybody see okay? Let's see, we've got a question so far. Love the colour, what's the formula? So here's the question. So the colour, this is a Wella colour. So part of our portfolio brands under the house of Conn Professional Beauty. We have Wella. We have Sebastian, we have Nioxin, we have Conn Professional, and we've also got GHD as well and OPI. So this was actually on a level, it was about a level 8.5 to 9. Quite a golden mannequin when we got these. So the colour that I used, this Colour Touch, I used 12 parts, 9/9/6. So for the non-Wella users, the first number, the 9, is the level, so it's a level 9. And then the second number, which is a 9, that is a tone which is called Cendré. So Cendré is a grey-based violet. And then the 6 is a violet tone. So on its own, it creates this really beautiful, like delicate rose tone. Then in that 12 parts, I added 1 part of 77/45, which is a Pyrosol Red, which is a level 7, and it also has a red-violet undertone. So by adding a little drop of that very intense red into that very soft, delicate rose tone, it creates this really, really beautiful rose gold tone. Very, very beautiful. So thanks for your question. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be working on this head dry. The reason why I like to work on dry hair is it really gives me the opportunity to see how the shape's evolving, okay? Always make sure when you're working on dry hair, if you're going to be using a blade, please, please, please make sure it's a brand new blade every time that you do a fresh haircut. Sometimes you might find on certain haircuts, you might need to change your blade maybe twice or even 3 times. So I put a fresh blade in here today. So I'm going to also be using some chignon clips. So the great thing about using clips like this is that this won't mark the hair. So I'm going to start at the front. And like I said, it's going to be a technique class. I'm not really going to be showcasing a haircut. I'm going to more or less be showcasing some techniques on this longer side. Depending on time, I might fire through and I might finish the rest of the haircut off through the other side. So just making sure I've got a nice fine section. Okay, so I want to just turn this over slightly. So skimming is a technique where I'm going to be laying the blade flat onto the hair, and then I'm going to move the blade up and down. What I'm not doing is I'm not coming in on an angle. I'm making sure that my blade is flat. The shape of this, I do want this to start to become that little bit longer. I want to be able to look at the jawline a little bit. So with my line that I'm going to be creating with my blade, is I want to make sure that that line gets a little bit longer towards that front section. Okay? So as I use my blade, I've got high tension, okay? And then what I'm going to be doing is with my blade is I'm just going to be coming in and very, very gently just moving up and down. And again, coming through and then gently moving up and down. If I took the same section and if my elevation started to come out, what's going to happen, it's going to start to collapse the weight out of it. I still want to see some weight through this bottom bit. So as I get further up, I'm going to slightly change my elevation as I get further up. And I'm also going to slightly change the technique that I'm going to do as well. So I'm going to take the next section down. If this was a client in a salon, sometimes what I would do is I would shampoo the hair first, I would dry the hair, or I would dry the hair in sections and I would work in this way. As I get through the Instagram live, I'm going to be sharing some techniques called spin cutting, okay? Spin cutting is a refabrication technique. So as I get further up, I'm going to be sort of utilizing some different techniques. In the world of Sebastian's heritage has always been about texture, okay? I don't know if you guys knew this, but Sebastian's been around since the early 70s. It was born in California, in Los Angeles, and it was founded by a celebrity hairdresser called Jerry Cosenza. Jerry had a really famous client back in the early 70s, and she was called Barbara Streisand, okay? So you got to think California in the 70s, the whole sort of hippie movement. Everybody was wearing their hair that little bit more looser, that little bit more textured looking. So how Jerry used to get that textured look on Barbara's hair is that she used to get she used to put lots of little braids in the hair. She used to put the braids in wet. And then what she used to do is she used to dry it into the hair. And then after it had dried, Jerry used to sort of pull the braids out and she used to create this real cool texture through the hair. But it was really quite labor intensive. So Jerry's husband, his name was Jean-Sebastian, okay? He was an engineer and she went to her husband and said, there must be a quicker, easier way to create this texture through the hair without it taking all this time. So this is how the crimping iron was born. 2 years later came the flat iron. So Sebastian's heritage has always been about innovation. It's always been about looking at the hair as being like a fabric, and how can we change that fabric of hair? Do we use a certain cutting technique, or do we use what we call liquid tools? So these are which are our styling products. We call them liquid tools because it allows you to put a different finish on the hair, and it allows you to mold and manipulate the hair, okay? So I'm going to come through the second section. As I say, I've taken quite a fine section through there. I'm just going to just spin this around a little bit more so you guys can see a little bit more. So I'm using the section underneath as my guide. So again, I've got high tension. If I didn't have enough tension on this section, it's going to be harder for my blade to go through the hair. So by having high tension on here, it's going to allow my skimming technique to work better. If I didn't have enough tension on here, my skimming, you might find it might start to pull the hair up a little bit, and it might be harder for the blade to work. So again, I'm going to come through. Again, high tension. I'm looking for my shadow underneath, which is obviously my guideline from the underneath. And then again, coming through. What I'm not looking for is I'm not looking for every single hair to be cut in the exact same way. I'm looking for slightly longer pieces to come through. Them slightly long pieces are going to start to add to that little bit more interest. So what I'm going to do now is I've cut a little section. I'm going to come through with my GHD Platinum Plus. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to just very slightly just bevel them ends under. I want to see exactly what I've done with my skimming technique. Okay, so I'm going to spin that around a little bit so you guys can get a little bit of a better view. So you can see what we've actually been able to create. We've actually created a little bit of a bevel through here. If I was to take the same section, and if I was to pull the hair out, I might find that this bevel might be a little bit higher up. So by using the elevation, this can really control how much weight you leave at the bottom. As I say, I still want to keep some weight through here. And when you start to sort of play around, you can see exactly what we're going to be creating. Creates a really, really nice, soft sort of bevel. As I get further up, I'm going to start to slightly change my elevation, and I'm also going to slightly change the way that I cut the hair. If I wanted to create a little bit more separation through here, I could do a technique called spin cutting. Okay? Spin cutting can be done with a razor, or it can also be done with a pair of scissors. Okay? So as I get through here, I'm mostly going to use the spin cutting as I get further up to this top area. So again, just working in a finer section. And then I'm going to put my blade away just for now. I'm going to come back and revisit the blade later on. But I want to start making this be a little bit more softer, and I also want to create a little bit more freedom within here. Okay, so I'm going to use a technique called back cutting. So back cutting is where I'm going to be using my scissors. Get the right ones out. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be holding my hands backwards, so my palm is towards me. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to slightly be opening and closing the scissor like this. But the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to hold my scissors loose in my hands, and I'm going to rock the scissors backwards and forwards. That little rocking movement will automatically make this go like this for me. This technique definitely needs a little bit of practice. Doing the technique on a mannequin, it doesn't sound great, but when you're actually doing it on real hair, it's so much better. But this is really good for them clients whose head is so straight that it doesn't really like to bend very well. This is going to allow the hair to start to bend, but it's also going to create this really intricate and this really beautiful texture through the hair. So I'm going to be using this guide underneath. There's my guide. I'm going to stand at the back so I can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going to just turn this around a little bit for you guys so you can see a little bit better. So I'm looking for my guide underneath. So there's my guide. And then with my back cutting technique, I'm going to come in and then back cut. I'm going to leave that as it is because my guide is not the previous section. My guide is the section underneath. So again, coming through. And then again, with this front section through here. Okay, looking good. Next section, I'm going to do the same. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly elevate it a little bit more. With a bob type shape, what I don't really like to do personally is I don't really like to do any traditional layering through the hair. Especially if you've got one side is that little bit more asymmetric than the other. If you worked a traditional layer through here, what can sometimes happen is where that layer stops, what happens, it can create a little bit of a bulky area. So this top can look really quite bulky. And then what it can actually do is start to collapse a lot of the weight out of here. So what I'm actually doing is I'm using more of an external technique to create that softness and that layering through the hair. So I'm going to come through. So I'm going to start to elevate my hair higher now. Just going to turn this camera a little bit so you get a little bit better view. So I'm going to start to elevate the hair up. So you can see I'm elevating more and then coming through and then using my back cutting technique. The great thing about this allows you to get through the haircut really quickly. But I find this will allow the hair to be a lot more pliable. I'm able to do more things with this hair. So again, taking this front section up, making sure my elevation's high. Just going to take that little bit off at the back. And like I said, definitely practice this technique. So again, with my flat iron, I'm just going to come in and put a little bevel through the hair. And again, just come through and bevel it a little bit. And then you'll see exactly what that shape's going to be doing to the hair. So again, I'm going to spin this around a little bit. So you can see, creates so much more softness and some more movement. If this wasn't a client that had finer hair, I could still do the techniques, but I'll just have to be a little bit careful not to go in and do too much of a deeper movement. My movement might be a little bit more shallower rather than more deeper. Okay, so next section. So coming through. Just going to move this around a little bit so you guys get a better view. So again, coming in, making sure my elevation is coming out. What you got to think about elevation. Elevation is the angle that you pull the hair out from the head. Anything that is 89 and below is graduation. So that's going to build up weight through the hair. Anything that is 90 degrees and above is a layer So that's going to collapse the weight a little bit, okay? So I want to start getting into more of a layer. So I'm actually going to start the layering from here. What I'm doing as well is I'm using the wider part of my comb. Don't be frightened to use the wide or the narrower parts, because it just gives you slightly different control of the hair. I tend to find when I'm working drier, I tend to like to work better with my wider part. So we have a question. Pull the question up. So do you prefer to use scissors or a razor with this technique? The way that I would decide on what tool I would use is all dependent on the hair. If the hair was super straight, and if the hair was maybe in really great condition, you know, in clients whose hair is a bit too good a condition, I would probably maybe opt for more of a back cutting technique, because that's going to allow me to create a much more softer edge through there. But really for me, it's all sort of personal choice. The type of hair that I would not texturize is hair that's already got texture, okay? So you're gonna think that if I'm working on hair, if you think of it like a fabric, if the hair is like a silk, by texturizing it, it's gonna feel a little bit more like a cotton. If I have hair that's more like a raw cotton, I could make it more like a Hessian sack, or like something that's a lot more rougher. So if hair is already slightly rough, I would not do any of these techniques on that particular client. I'm a great believer in using the right technique on the right client to get the right results. Yeah. So just be a little bit careful when you're using these types of techniques. So thank you for your question. I think I might have another question through here as well. Nope, all questions are good. Perfect. So again, coming through. And again, making sure that I elevate right up. And again, I'm going to give that a little polish. So just a little bevel with my GHDs. And remember, we don't want it to be cut to the exact same length. It's okay to leave some pieces slightly a little bit longer. Visually, if it looks cool, leave it on. Yeah. I think sometimes if your background's a little bit more of a classic background, or if you're maybe a new talent stylist, or if you're maybe still at school, sometimes you might find that, you know, leaving bits a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, sometimes at school, or how you get taught to do hair, is sometimes they say, you know, everything needs to match in, but a lot of times things don't need to match, you know? So you can see how that's looking now. So that's a really quite a nice shape that we got through there. What I want to start to do now is I want to start to remove a little bit more weight out of here. So I'm going to go back onto my blade, and I'm going to do a technique which is called pen cutting, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold my blade a little bit like how I would write, okay? And I'm going to take a section of hair. Just going to just turn this around slightly so you guys can get a little bit of a better view. Okay. So I'm going to take a section of hair, and I'm going to come in on a slight angle. You don't want to go anywhere near this root area. All I want to do is I want to create some spaces through here, so it's going to create a little bit more of a separation. So I'm going to take my blade, and I'm going to slightly come on a little bit of an angle, and I'm going to come through and then just do a little bit of bulk reduction using my blade. This can be really good to use on like a fringe area if the fringe is quite heavy. So again, holding, coming in at a slight angle. So a really great way of doing that little bit of bulk reduction, okay? Again, if you come in with the pen cutting technique, if you come into the hair straight, what you'll find is that the blade will just slide through. So what you need to do is you need to come in on a slight angle so the blade will actually start to come into the hair so it can actually start to create that little bit more texture through it. Another really great technique to do is, I'm going to show you the motion, okay? So you're going to be coming in and you're going to be doing this type of motion, okay? This can be really great on if you've done some barbering, if you want to just sort of finish off the haircut, especially if you're working on like really coarse, like Asian hair, it's a really great technique, or if you're looking to remove some bulk, especially around the sort of the back area. So what you would do is you'd come in and you would do this movement. So again, just be really careful. You can always take more out. If you're taking too much out, you're in trouble. Yeah. So a little bit of like that type of thing. What you can also do is I'll show you the technique, but it's really for shorter hair, and it's called dusting. Okay. So a dusting technique is where you're going to take the section of hair. So especially on somebody, if you've done like a scissor or the comb, it's great for that. And what you would do is you'd hold the hair out and you'd actually dust it like this. And what that does, it just softens any edges and it just basically just makes the hair just lay a little bit better. So I'm going to get into the top section now. So you can see my longer fringe area. And then we're going to do a little bit of back cutting to create out a little bit more texture. So I've got my blade in my hand at the moment, so I might as well carry on this technique with the blade. So again, just looking for them slightly longer pieces. And again, how I'm using my blade on the hair is it's flat and I'm just moving it backwards and forwards, but I'm just being a little bit gentle with my movement. Especially, if you've just put a brand new blade in, for the first couple of sections, you're just getting used to the sharpness of the blade. So definitely just be a little bit more cautious. And this will be the last section for the actual length through here. So again, I'm lifting up, going through backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Okay, so I'm just going to just comb this down, check my line. Give it a little polish over, and then I'm going to do a little bit of spin cutting through that. I'm a real big fan of cutting hair dry. I would never, in a salon environment, I'd never have a client coming in for me to do the hair dry. I would always shampoo. I'd always make sure that I prep my canvas and make sure that the fabric is a really great fabric. But sometimes when you're using texturizing techniques, especially when I come into using the spin cutting, the hair really needs to be dry for the spin cutting technique. So again, coming through these sides. Spin this around a little bit. So I've got a nice little bit of a bevel. So you can see now it's been quite collapsed quite a lot through there. We've got quite a lot of softness happening. So when we start to sort of play around with the hair, you can sort of see how the hair's starting to become a little bit more pliable through there. So what I want to do now is I want to create that little bit more volume through here. So the way that I'm actually going to do that is by using a technique called back cutting. So I'm just going to just move this down slightly. So there's quite a lot of different ways that you can do the back cutting technique. One is what's called a refabrication technique, okay? Again, this is for them clients whose hair's super silky And you know, they always maybe say it always gets flat around the crown area, you know? So what I want to do is I want to change that fabric, okay? So it's for them silky haired clients. So I'm going to come through, I'm going to work in little square sections, making sure my sections aren't too big. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and I'm going to spin cut the hair. So making sure my spins are in tight, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the heel of my scissor. Again, we're not going to go anywhere close towards the root area. We're going to maybe work it more here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly just start to push them cuticles back. Okay. So I've done a couple of things here. One is I've created some slightly shorter sections. So these are called support sections. But what I've also done is I've gone against the cuticle. And because I've gone against the cuticle, I've actually let the cuticle raise a little bit. So really for that client whose hair is a little bit more silkier, I've actually changed the fabric of hair to make it feel a little bit more like a cotton. So you can sort of see we've taken some hair out there. The great thing about the technique is as you come out of it, you don't actually see where you've gone into it. So one thing, it's given me a slightly different surface. But it's also done, it's allowed me to put some slightly shorter pieces through here, which is going to create that texture and that movement. The second way you can do the technique is again, coming through. So this is not a refabrication, I'm not changing the fabric. This is actually going to work some support sections through the hair. So again, I'm coming through, I'm spinning the hair. I'm using the heel of my scissor, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly just open and close, open and close, open and close, open and close, okay? So again, if I start to pull some of these little pieces out, and we've got some pieces there, and as I unravel, so you can sort of see through there, we've got some hair that's come out. But again, when you comb it up, you don't really see where you've gone in, but this is again, it's going to create that more texture and that softness through there. So you can see exactly what that's done. So again, it creates that feeling of it being a layer, but there's no layers actually in here. Okay. There's also, you can also use your blade again. Let me get rid of these scissors. So again, through here. So spinning. With these techniques, you can actually make the hair move in a certain direction, okay? If I'm trying to create volume, I probably would come in this side because I want to create the volume coming up this way. If I'm trying to create where I want the hair to slightly kick out a little bit to create that little bit of movement, I might come on the top of the surface. So depending on where you actually come into the hair will depend on what the actual hair will do. So you can actually make the hair move a lot more on its own. Okay, so again with your blade, you can either come in and then just very, very gently come through like this. You can also come in on the top of the hair, but again, don't go too close to the root. But what you can also do like a chopping movement. So you can hold the hair up, and then you can come through and slightly chop through the hair. So again, when you pull that out, you don't see where you've gone in, but it just creates that little bit more softness. So you can see exactly what that technique's done. You can see that that's actually started to kick out now. So especially if you're working in that more like a lob, and that client wants it to be a little bit more movable, you can see by using them techniques, it does make the hair kick out for you. So I'm just going to just give that a little polish over, and then we'll check our shape. So we're going to be back again on Thursday, so same time, same place, Modern Beauty Supplies Instagram page. And my colleagues Chelsea Mann and Michelle Desatel, is going to be going through some Sebastian styling techniques and also a little bit of Sebastian product knowledge. Okay, so it's going to have a little look, see how she's looking. And I'm just going to just quickly put a dryer in. Okay, so you can see how much more volume you can actually create from there. So really we've actually sort of manipulated the hair so it can actually become a lot more pliable. My whole philosophy when it comes to texturizing is product is going to support what you've actually done with the hair. So if you wanted to create texture through the hair, obviously with a product's not going to really create that much texture. It's really the foundation. You know, if you think of it a little bit like a house, we've actually created a really great foundation for the products to actually do their jobs. So to finish it, all I'm going to really do is I'm going to use a little bit of dry clean only. So dry clean only is it's a dry shampoo from Sebastian. It has properties that are going to be more of a styling property as well as a cleaning property. I want the hair to be that little bit more softer. So I'm just going to just come through, work a little bit of my dry clean only through the hair. And for this client as well, this will be really easy for her to manage. All she really would need to do is just basically just blow dry her hair upside down. She'll get an amazing amount of volume. It'll be super easy for her to manage it as well. So that is the end of the class today. So remember, next week we have, on Thursday I might say, we have Nichelle and we've also got Chelsea as well. So I'm going to be on here again. So keep inspired, keep safe, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thanks, Bye.